make sure everything's looking good on the page. And then my cat is sleeping on the computer. Get down, son. Let's see.
Stream's looking good to me, so
Yeah, looking great.
cool.
All right, so everybody in chat, I hope you're ready for this. We're going to learn a little more about Rack Starfall today. It's going to be good stuff. It's going to be good stuff. Let's see here. So, let me get started. Welcome one and all to a special Reset Button Revival. Today, we are going to talk about Rack Starfall. I've got with me Brad Carney from Final Boss Studios here, or Final Boss Entertainment, excuse me, and he's going to talk about the spiritual sequel to Rack, which is now Rack Starfall. Now, for those who aren't in the know about Rack, it is a old school first-person shooter. Definitely one of the best ones I've played recently. And if you haven't seen the game before, check out the full review I did on my personal YouTube channel. And with that, Brad, how are you today?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me. That was quite a nice introduction. So,
Well, I'm not lying about it. Anybody who's seen the interview, not the interview, but the review knows that I really did enjoy Rack, and I put a good bunch of time into that game simply because it reminds me so much of like classic Doom, classic Quake. And it's interesting that a game like that is, out there right now because I think we're having an old school revival of first-person shooters. I know that we recently put out an episode of Super Reset Brothers where Screw Attack Sean Bolin, and I talked about the revival of old school. So, first and foremost, let's just go into Rack. What made you decide to go old school with your first game?
well, when we started making the game, when we kind of sat down to kind of make our own game, like nothing was really being done kind of in the old school vein. And it really seemed like it was happening for no good reason. Like the last few kind of like old school shooters that came out, like they were making good money and like they were popular and everything, but it was just kind of like all of a sudden the collective game development hive mind decided, no, we're gonna make Half-Life style games, we're gonna make Call of Duty style games,
Right.
we're just not gonna make any of these anymore. And I think part of that is you can chalk that up to the developers of those games kind of taking their sweet time. I mean, Duke Nukem Forever, I mean, it's kind of legendary and how
Took
long
forever?
that took. Yeah, Duke Nukem took forever, yeah. So, it was like those guys kind of dropped the ball a little bit, and then Rage took forever as well. So, we kind of thought that like, hey, there's a bit of an opening here, maybe we could try doing something in that vein. I think there's probably still a lot of people who would want to play a game like this, and that's kind of where the game started. So
Excellent.
we it's kind of funny though. It's because like we ended up taking so long in the game. We actually spent 6 years developing the game, which is quite a long time. But other games kind of cropped up during that period, and kind of maybe did a little bit to not only satisfy but maybe sour people's tastes for something kind of old school. I mean, like Rise of the Triad, for instance. I mean, that kind of came out. And unfortunately, it was plagued with a bunch of technical issues and other things. And, unfortunately, I mean, that was kind of like one of the first big entries into the old school genre in a while. And
Right.
kind of muddy the waters a little bit. But so
No, I could understand.
Yeah. So, we, yeah, in a lot of ways, I mean, it's maybe a little bit of bad timing on our part, but, I mean, at the end of the day, I think there were still a lot of people who, didn't want to play these kinds of games, and we wanted to try and do something to satisfy those people. And it does still seem like, I guess with Steam and, them kind of lowering barriers to making a game and getting on there. They're having a few more entries in the old school genre too. Like Reflex, I think is something that like people tried to kickstart. I'm not sure what happened with that. But then there was another Toxic, I think is another big one. Hashtag Wrecked. But there are a number. I think they're doing fairly well.
Yeah, and
So.
I would even go because you were saying that it kind of soured the idea, and not a lot of people want to play that. That may be true, but at the same time, there's a lot of people who do want to play games like that, and I think we're starting to see that slowly revival of the old school genre of shooters. Now, Brad, you and I met each other 2 years ago at SEC 2014 at their Indie Haven or
Yeah.
Indie Heaven. That's right, and I know when I saw that, I was immediately drawn into it because I thought, you know what, I like the art style, and then I played the game and thought, I love the old school aspect of what's going on here. And we're starting to see the revival of that old school aspect, first with Wolfenstein New Order. Now Doom is starting to go old school. And, I think that there's going to be a major appeal for games like Rack. And I hope everybody who hasn't had a chance to play the game before and hearing this now, go out, try it. I think you're really going to enjoy it.
And of course, Doom, which is about to come out as well. Kind of the king of old school. It is actually kind of funny.
Oh, absolutely.
I have heard I've heard some people complain about Wolfenstein and also the new Doom. Not being old school enough for their taste, but it does seem like the games do definitely have some old school elements to them. For instance, in the new Doom, which of course we have to call it that or something like that because it's just Doom. It's not Doom 4. It's not it's anyway. But in this new Doom, like you can carry all of your weapons at the same time, which is something that was done in the original version. It's kind of a very old school exclusive kind of element.
Yeah, I recently had a chance to participate in the beta for Doom, and I really got that old school vibe with it. Now, of course, it does have some new school elements to it. Some, I would imagine, in terms of like being able to do like executions and things like that. But overall, definitely the old school vibe. Definitely good stuff.
Yeah.
But in terms that the thing I want to focus on here, because Rack came out, great stuff, but you're doing something new, something fairly innovative. Tell us a little more about that.
So Rack came out, and we were honestly a little bit disappointed with the response to it. It seemed like a lot of people they were just kind of like, oh, well, it's old school Doom, and like the idea of that didn't really appeal to as many people as we were hoping. Especially considering the amount of work and effort we put into it. I mean, I think anyone can, if they just take a look at the game, you can clearly see like a lot of work went into this.
Right, absolutely.
This is some like fly by night thing we did over a couple months. So we decided like when we wanted to do think about doing like a sequel or follow up. We wanted to do something that maybe like the concept was a little bit more appealing. So we wanted to kind of take like the elements of Rack that worked, kind of like the arcade style elements of the game, and then also like the art style and the characters and the universe, and kind of like the same kind of light and fun kind of feeling of the game. And we wanted to package that in like a really cool new kind of gameplay idea, something that had really never been done before. And so kind of what we arrived at was a tower defense first-person shooter, something kind of like Sanctum or Orcs Must Die, but also with roguelike elements. So, it's kind of like that, kind of fused with like something like The Binding of Isaac or Don't Starve or Crypt of the Necrodancer or Darkest Dungeon or any of these kinds of huge, like really hugely popular kind of games that have been on Steam recently. And part of why we thought like that was like a really cool idea is that first of all, like tower defense, like it's kind of like puzzly kind of in nature. So it's kind of like you're kind of using your brain to kind of figure out how to put down towers and kind of defend some kind of central location. But if it's a roguelike, like that the layouts are like constantly changing, like you're never playing like the same thing twice, so it's always a new puzzle to solve. And like because of that, like it should never get stale and boring. It should never be like, oh, okay, well, I know the optimal layout to put down here, just do, and so you never go through that, so it never gets boring. So you're always having to use your brain to kind of figure out like how you should arrange the towers, and also because it's randomized, like you don't necessarily have the same tools at your disposal all the time, because You know, maybe sometimes this set of towers spawn, and you got to use those and whatever. Uh, but it's a great way to add replayability to the game, and also a ton of weapons, which is something that we had time and time again come to us, and in terms of feedback, with the old school model, like where you keep all of your weapons, like you can't really have a ton of different weapons in the game without just kind of like running out of slots. Otherwise, it's like, oh, I'll bind my sixth pistol to N. Like it just gets
Right,
gets to a point of absurdity very quickly. So by making it a roguelike where it's like you're only carrying around like 4 weapons at a time, but where you can have like multiple weapons that go on each slot, even though you're carrying one at a time. It seemed like a great way to basically let people have a game where it has tons of weapons, and where the people can all grab and go blast things with. But it also helps at the replayability of it too. If it's a fairly short campaign, but it's new every time you play it, and there's various things to go unlock along the way. That takes some time to do it. Suddenly people are getting a lot more value out of their purchase. They're getting a game that they can have many more hours of fun with, and there's just lots of content there for them to play. So, like, in addition to like the idea of just being like kind of this something new and novel, something that was like going to hopefully stick in people's minds and get them excited. Just the mere concept. But I also think it's going to make for just like a way better game. It's something that speaks to what people have been wanting for a while. And it's solid. Like, it should be fun to play. Like, time and time again, even years down the line.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially with the continuing popularity of games like Orcs Must Die 2, like you mentioned there. Especially with Orcs Must Die, it does. I don't think it randomizes, but each stage is completely different from the next.
Right.
And does force you to think about how you're going to like put everything out and really complete the stage.
Right.
Otherwise, if you don't think it through, you could lose.
Right. But with Orcs Must Die, like, if once you've like thought out how to lay everything out on a particular stage, it's over. Like, you've figured it out, and like it's not fun to play anymore after that, because it's like, oh, I already figured this out. Like, what's the point? I'm not getting anything out of playing it further. But what we're hoping for with Starfall is like you never run into that situation.
Yeah, exactly. This is where you come in to fix that issue in design. So let me ask you, I mean, this sounds like, a pretty daunting task to come up with something like this. Where was your head when this idea was created?
We were, Rec had just come out. The game had come out. We were kind of evaluating, where things were going from there. It's kind of funny. We'd actually thought about expanding the game, which we made the mistake of talking about way too much, because we just kind of took success for granted, and we're kind of like, yeah, of course the game is going to do well, of course people are going to want more, of course we'll do more content, let's discuss this openly. And that ended up not being the case. But we actually had been playing a Kickstarter for like Rack episode 2 and 3, and yeah, the game came out, and it made a bit of a splash when it came out. We had like one of those fly-by-night Kotaku articles where they were at a headline that has like nothing to do with the actual article itself. It was like these guys spent 6 years making this game, and then there was like nothing in the article that talked about like why did it take 6 years? Why? It's just it was very silly. But we were lucky enough to have an article on Kotaku. I think we had something on like PC Gamer. Yeah, I think you did stuff for Screw Attack, which was awesome. But that was kind of it, and it was it sold pretty well like in the first few days, but then like it just completely evaporated, and there was like nothing left after that. It was like there was no social media hype. There was no one else in the media was covering it. More importantly, like no one was like playing the game on YouTube on like any kind of regular basis. So I mean, it was kind of like, okay. We barely got anything out of doing episode 1, so like, who the hell is going to cover like an expansion for this? If like Rock Paper Shotgun isn't going to cover like the main release of the game, like why would they cover like an expansion for it? So
Right.
so I mean, we were kind of like, okay, I mean, people, some people are kind of into this, but for the most part, like it's kind of not what we were hoping. But and then at the same time, it's like we just didn't get like enough coverage, so we were kind of like, if we do like another 2 or 3 episodes, or in a second and third episode, like who's it just we weren't sure who was going to cover it, who was going to buy it, if people were really going to like it at that point. So we kind of realized that we needed to do something else, something new. And that's kind of where we were kind of, let me back up a little bit. So I'd kind of been ever since a little bit before Rack came out, I started doing some like really heavy research on just kind of what it takes for like a product to be successful. And kind of what I came to realize time and time again, coming across this in the readings, is that the most important thing is basically to be first in something. So like you can two different developers can kind of have like the same idea for something, but the one who comes along with it first, like that's going to be the one that's going to imprint in people's brains and everyone's going to go love. Whereas like the guy who comes out with it second, like even if they do a better job, like it's already been established the first one is the one that exists and everyone loves and cares about. And you kind of see this, you see this thing happen like all the time. It's like even like movies, it was like like in the mid 90s, like there were a couple of like asteroid movies that came out like at the same time, but Armageddon was like slightly first, and because of that, I think that's the one that kind of people associate with asteroid movies, Armageddon, that one was great. What, Deep Impact, what's that, what, so.
And even video game wise, I immediately think of Terraria versus Minecraft.
Yeah.
I personally like Terraria much better than Minecraft, but Minecraft came first.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
Minecraft is king.
Yeah. It's the same with another example, like Doom and Duke Nukem. It was like Doom, like Doom and Wolfenstein, like they kind of pioneered the old school genre. So it's like everything else that comes after that is just very, very secondary in people's brains. I do like Duke Nukem, like they did kind of carve out a bit of a unique niche, which is really what you absolutely have to do in that situation. But there are countless other games that didn't really do too much to differentiate themselves, and like they just Doom just swallowed them all alive in terms of kind of market share in people's brains. And that's I think that was a big thing that was happening to us. It was like the game came out, Rack came out, and it was everyone's just kind of like, oh well, it's Doom, and like that didn't excite too many people. Just the idea of that. I mean, the fact that Doom is like the original Doom is still alive, and people are still developing content for, and working on source ports and everything. Just really doing a whole lot for. That definitely didn't help us. So as a result, like we kind of decided that we needed to do something new. It's something that had never been done before, and something that could have a chance of being seen as unique and interesting and in the minds of the people. And that's I had been playing a ton of roguelikes at the time. I was really fascinated at just kind of the concept of them, how they worked, and just how popular they were, and just all the things that they let you do, like in terms of content and replayability. And then I had also just always been like a big tower defense fan. Kind of going back to some ancient Doom mods. I really enjoyed playing those, and it was something that I kind of wanted to. I thought about pursuing one day, and then I came across Orcs Must Die and Sanctum, and just kind of all these things. Like it just kind of became like, wouldn't it be amazing if like these were all, if like we did this, if like we combine the elements of a roguelike with something like this, along with like the first person shooter arcade nature of Rack. And I so far, it just clicked like right away. It's one of those things where it's like the idea just comes out of your mind fully formed, basically. And that's kind of where Starfall was born. We've kind of been pursuing that ever since. So.
And it looks like you guys are becoming way more ambitious this time than you were previously. And what I mean when I say that is you guys, first time around, you were PC only, going through Steam. Now, if you look on the Kickstarter, you guys are considering going to PlayStation 4 and Xbox One. I mean, what drove that ambition to say we're going all out this time?
Well, for one, those are stretch goals, which I mean, let's be honest, probably not going to reach those. But you know, we do want to try to reach a broader audience if possible. You know, if it's kind of funny, like we are doing something completely new here with this game, which because of that, like we need to like try and reach an audience of people who will appreciate that kind of thing. You know, kind of a wider audience. And a second, it's you know because we are changing gears with what we're doing with Rack a little bit. And a lot of those people are on board and embracing what we're doing. I think it's a really cool idea and everything. And by the way, they're right. But then there are some you know people who are kind of diehards you know about it, and you know they're upset we're not doing more of the original Rack. You know we're choosing not to expand it or anything like that. So you know I mean we're getting a lot of support from our audience, but you know at the same time it's like it's not quite a perfect fit for some of those people, especially if they're you know like really super on board with what the original Rack is. You know, it's understandable how like something else wouldn't be something a little different wouldn't be appealing to them, and especially if they're already thinking of Rack as like old school shooter. You know, kind of having the name attached to Starfall could you know it's understandable how you know could cause a bit of you know cognitive dissonance there. But yeah, it would definitely be great, you know, if we could bring the game to consoles. I mean, that was something we did want to do for Rack initially, but you know, just didn't quite have the audience there to you know make that happen. Well, you know, we did make the original Rack with like kind of consoles in mind. You know, I mean, very early on when I was developing the game, you know, like I went and picked up an Xbox 360 controller and you know plugged it in my PC and you know because I wanted to see how the game would work with that and yeah I was very surprised right away at how well it worked out. You know, so you could run around and aim and everything, and it didn't really take too much beyond that to you know kind of tweak it to you know really get it to where it felt like really super good, but just kind of out of the box it was kind of like, oh hey, this definitely works, this is not that bad. Because it was kind of funny because, you know, I mean, you know, I kind of grew up in an era of, you know, Super Nintendo controllers and, you know, even like the old PS1 controller, you know, it was like, it was pretty good for like an FPS, but like not super ideal. But yeah, I just kind of grew up in an age where, you know, it was always like, oh my God, PC, you know, keyboard, mouse, always the best thing to use. And just it seemed like a completely different kind of controller that worked for that was kind of surprising.
Yeah,
In a
makes
good way,
perfect
so.
sense.
Yeah.
Makes perfect sense to try and, you know, bridge it over, especially because the one thing I was going to bring up and get your pulse on this one is, you know, the continuing popularity of streaming. Because that's a big thing
Yeah.
that's helping people decide, do I want this game? Well, I'm going to go watch my favorite streamer. And I'm going to, you know, make my my purchase decision based on how this streamer perceives this game. So, in terms that when you guys are developing this, do you have, say, live stream in mind?
You know, I'm glad you brought that up because that was actually a gigantic consideration when making this game. It doesn't take any kind of particular genius to kind of look at the landscape and realize that, oh my God, streaming YouTube, that's kind of big now. That's kind of popular, which is definitely not how it used to be. You know, it used to be primarily, I guess, like review sites and like going even back further, magazines and things like that. So you know, but it used to be like you know if you had like a really good but you know maybe short game, you know it would get you know a good review in these sorts of publications, and then people would trust that and go buy it and play it. But now in this day and age of you know streaming and YouTube, you know games that last a lot longer and have a lot more reason for you to come back to them over and over, so that YouTubers you know have an incentive to put up more and more videos of the game, and streamers have a reason to keep playing the game and keep streaming it. You know, it's. I mean, we're in an age where that's far more popular than it used to be. You know, and it's kind of funny. I mean, it's kind of sad, but you know, at the same time, you know, I can't feel. I mean, that's the nature of the business. But you know, some people have made games recently which are really not conducive to, you know, those games being streamed and put on YouTube. And in those cases, it's like people watch the streamers play those games that people play them on YouTube, and then they don't feel any particular need to go buy the game or play the game. They feel like they've experienced the entire thing, because the games are very narrative driven and what have you. And in a lot of cases, it's YouTube and streaming kind of saps interest in those games, which I mean, hey, you have to be familiar with the landscape. You have to know what you're up against before you sit down and start developing something. But yeah, I mean, we're like really that was just like a huge thing for us. We wanted to have a game that people could play and stream over and over again, and they would enjoy it. It's kind of funny. One of the things that I did for Kickstarter is for people who backed the project, I ended up making just like a little like quick playthrough video of just kind of me playing the game, showing it off a little bit so people could see a little bit more in depth what the game is all about, and kind of how the gameplay works and everything. But I played through like one playthrough of it, and it was kind of like, man, I showed like nothing in this game. It was like there's so much more in this game that like I didn't get to show these people, and that's just because like the randomized nature of the game, the procedural generation nature of the game. It's like you might play the game, you might encounter like I don't know 7 or 8 of the weapons, whereas there's like 40 or something game. So there's no way you can play through the game and see all of it, or even close to all of it. So I think that's that it was kind of an interesting feeling, but at the same time it's kind of like, man, that's so great for streaming and YouTube. It's like people can play through the game many times and always be showing something new, always be giving something new to the audience. So
excellent. And I've got to throw this out there on you, Brad. It's the same conversation we had when Rack came out. Multiplayer. If not, why not?
Well, first of all, excuse me. That is something we're considering. It's something we really want to do. We put a stretch goal up for that, and we do hope people will want to be incentivized enough to go try and make that happen. But yeah, it's something that we do want to do. It's something the game is, it's well equipped for. We haven't like actually done anything explicit to support multiplayer, but it would be something that would be very doable given our current setup and just kind of the way the game works. But yeah, it's multiplayer is definitely a tricky thing. For one, it's difficult to develop. It's not something you just bang out in a weekend and hey,
right.
It's all done, excellent. No, it's something that requires constant work. It's something you largely have to build the game with it in mind. But it takes a lot more content. You need more player models. You need more in terms of animation, ways for the players to interact, and there's all sorts of game logic stuff that you gotta work out. It's like if one person leaves the hub, do both people leave? Do we wait for the other person to be ready? Because like what if you're playing with a troll and they want to leave before you're so there's all kinds of stuff like that to work out. But yeah, it's so not only is it difficult to develop for, but also it's one of those things where it's like if there aren't enough people around to play with, it dies off fairly quickly. And that even happens, if we kind of limit it to like a 2-player co-op kind of thing. If the game doesn't make enough of a splash that like a lot of your friends have bought it and want to play it a lot, you're not going to have anyone to play co-op with, and then that's going to make you not want to play the game, and then you won't be around for other people to want to play co-op with, and kind of the whole thing kind of crumbles. In which case, we've kind of done a whole lot of work for nothing. But it's one of those things, like multiplayer. It always sounds appealing, but in reality, there's all kinds of pitfalls and stuff that can prevent it from working out, and. I think we've all kind of seen many games where it's like they have multiplayer and it ends up just kind of being a ghost town not too long after that because of all these reasons. But it's what was I gonna say? it's as far as like multiplayer like being needed for this game to be successful or anything. I'm really not too. I don't really think that's the case. So, I mean, the original Orcs Must Die, no multiplayer. Sanctum, no multiplayer. Bind of Isaac, no multiplayer. Darkest Dungeon, I don't think has multiplayer. Don't Starve, no multiplayer. Oh, it got it eventually, and Don't Starve together. But it's. I mean, everything we're kind of basing this on. Yeah, for the most part, there has not been multiplayer with those sorts of games, and they've done just fine. In a lot of cases, if the original game did well, they went on to do a multiplayer-oriented sequel. Orcs Must Die 2, multiplayer-based. Sanctum 2, multiplayer-based. Even Torchlight 2, multiplayer-based, even though that's a completely different genre.
Right, right.
But yeah, so I mean that's something like if unfortunately, and one more thing, some people have been like, oh, why is your multiplayer stretch goal so high? And it's kind of for that reason. Like we want if it's so low and it gets reached that early, without necessarily needing that many backers, then it's like it's not something people really wanted enough, and is not going to have any real goal of being reached. I mean, if we were being realistic about this, I mean, multiplayer should have been the last one, so that only if the project is really popular, and people really want it, then it happens. But we want to try and meet people halfway.
Yeah, you're saying if fans want it bad enough, then they will support it until it reaches that goal.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
In which case, if we do have that kind of support, then multiplayer actually has a chance of not being dead day one. So.
And that to me is perfectly reasonable. That's the big thing I wanted to hear. That this time, because that was, I think the thing that you and I talked about the most was lack of multiplayer in Rack. Now to hear that Starfall is considering that is fantastic. I'm happy to hear it, and I hope it reaches that goal. So the last thing I can think of, because we covered all the major points here, and you would know more about your project than I would. So is there anything out there that the folks need to know about that I haven't asked you?
We're okay. So Rack, it introduced like a lot of kind of unique elements to just I don't know, gaming. I don't know. Certainly the old school genre. But it was a very we kind of had like a very arcade style take on the genre. So it was a game that had like lives and score and kind of combos and kill chains and all this fun stuff. I mean, like these like kind of fighting game style finishers. It's kind of like a super move. So we're trying to bring all of those. Okay, so like we had those elements in Rack. The game wasn't completely designed with those things in mind. A couple things were kind of shoehorned in at the end, specifically like the finishers, and they didn't quite work out as well as we would have liked. Some things in the levels weren't totally set up with these things in mind, and yeah, it's one of those things. It's if you try and put something in too late, it's you risk it not working. You risk like the fact that the game wasn't designed with that in mind, that this new element kind of causes issues and problems, and we kind of had that to some degree. But we're trying to bring all these things back in Starfall and in a much more intuitive and fun fashion. So we're bringing kill streaks back. We're bringing combos back. We're bringing those finishers, but they're not called power shots, back. And these things fit so much better into a tower defense game, because it's sort of like you're just kind of compiling these meaningless points that let's be honest, no one cares about. You're actually getting money for doing these things, and that's the money that lets you buy things in the shop. That's money that lets you place towers and upgrade them so they become bigger, stronger, better killing machines. And it's something that just works out so much better. So you kind of have like all these excuse me. So you kind of have all these enemies coming towards the beacon, and you're trying to basically just wipe them all out as quickly as you can, which is great for kill streaks. You constantly have a nice stream of enemies there to kill one after another to build that up. And then like kind of the way the power shots work in this, which was just, I think I mentioned, like those are like the finishers from Rack.
Right.
But Yeah. So it's every time you damage an enemy now, it's like you kind of build like a little bit of meter towards that. And then it's like once that's all full, you can just let it loose like absolutely whenever you want. You don't have to be like in the middle of a chain or anything to do it. So there's a lot more flexibility there. Um, but it's really cool. We're very happy how that's all worked out. In addition to that, like there are other ways to earn money too through like headshots and jibbing enemies, which is now called overkill. If you overkill something, it explodes into a nice bloody mist and chunks of body parts and everything, which is really cool. So we got that. Yeah, so it's just I think it's a really cool concept. We're trying to trying to incorporate as much from the original rack as we can into this, where it makes sense, and also trying to refine those elements even more. So I think we're just really onto just a really dynamite concept here. Hopefully we get the word out. Hopefully we get people to look at this Kickstarter, and
Which I hope they do after listening to this.
yeah, I hope so. But yeah, and in the case that that doesn't work out, we'll probably end up doing like an early access type of thing, so that people can get the game in some kind of early fashion, and then we can kind of finish it up from there. Kind of similar to what we did with Rack. Only should actually be a better fit this time, because the kind of game this is. It's a lot more conducive to replayability and people coming back to it over and over again as we update it. And I think that kind of game works out much better for early access.
Awesome. Well, Brad, I want to thank you so much for coming out and talking more about your game. For anybody who's interested, you can find more about Rack Starfall on Twitter at RackGame, and also be sure to check out the official Kickstarter for Rack Starfall. And with that in mind, again, thanks so much for showing up for the reset button. Have a good time. So, Brad, awesome.
Thanks,
awesome.
man. That was great. I really enjoyed that, and I hope your audience does as well. So
yeah, I hope so too. I hope that they really do look into it and realize that it is a good game. I'm not just saying this, guys. I'm not just saying this. This was just something that was came to fruition when I was lead news editor at Screw Attack. I tried the game. I really did love the game. So please do not take it as, oh, Brad, so you're going to be saying all this. No, no, no. It's really worth your time. If you haven't had a chance to try Rack before, go ahead and try that, and then you'll probably have a better understanding of what Brad's talking about and what he's wanting to accomplish.
yeah, and if I've learned one thing, it's that people are honest. Like, I mean, seriously, if people don't like the game, they will tell you. Like, they have no hesitation about that in this day and age. So if you're saying you like it, I absolutely trust you, and
oh yeah,
I think you have good
I
reason
do.
too. By the way, so
I absolutely do like it. I think, like I said, the only thing you and I have talked about over and over again is multiplayer. We talk so much about multiplayer,
and it's not like we don't want to do it, but it's like
right.
we want it to work. Like, we want it to be good. We want it to be worth people's time. Like, if we spend a bunch of our time and effort making it, and then nobody plays it, then like, what was the point? Like, we just wasted all of our time. We wasted your time because we didn't give you something worth your time. But unfortunately, certain things have to happen before multiplayer can really have a chance, and so.
Yeah. Well, guys, all I can tell you is, like I said before we ended the show, it's at Rack Game. Go over there, check out the Kickstarter. If you do like what you see, I think it's like, what, $15 to secure a digital copy?
For Starfall, yes.
Yes. Yeah, $15 to secure a digital copy of it. If they start hitting some of their goals, they'll be coming to like PS4, Xbox One, and I know the big thing a lot of people like to do is they like to stream, so why not support it, pick it up, stream it.
Yeah.
All right, well, guys, thanks so much for coming out. Brad and I are going to get out of here. You guys have a good night.